Okay, guys, here we go. We're going to try to do 1.3 fairly quickly. I'm using Screencastify again, sorry. And so we are talking about solving equations, and with that becomes, before that comes algebraic expressions. So on your notes, we went through the different words that were important and the different operations that go with those. So we have, for example, 125 decreased by a number. The key word there is decreased. And of course, decrease means that we're going to subtract. Does order matter? Yes or no? Well, the question is if I subtract one direction, so say 10 minus 6 is 4, do I get the same thing if I mix that order? So is 4 minus 10 still 6? No. So order does matter. If I subtract one way or subtract the other, I either get 10 minus 6 is 4, or 6 minus 10 is a negative 4. So they give me different answers. Okay. Algebraic expression would be 125 minus a number. And if I simplify it, it's actually already simplified. Okay. So these are in the notes that I put on Google Classroom. So you can see all of the different ones there. I want to head down to the bottom where you guys have some of the harder ones. So for example, 5 times the product of x and y increased by 3xy. So the important words would be times, product, and increased. So times, times, or multiplication, multiplication, and plus. Does order matter? Not really on this one because we're doing multiplication and addition. So it's not really going to matter as far as when I multiply those, it doesn't matter. And when I add, the order doesn't matter. However, the very beginning part, those need to go together. And the second part, that 3x needs to go together. So if I read that to myself, I have 5 times the product of x and y, increased by 3xy. And if I can simplify those, I have like terms, so I can go ahead and add 5xy plus 3xy and get 8xy. Okay, so notice that these are expressions. None of them have equal signs. So we wouldn't be solving anything by adding or subtracting, doing opposite operations. These were just simply making them nicer. We are simplifying. We're putting our like terms together. Okay. As you move over to the second side of these notes, if you were in class today, we helped brainstorm this. If you weren't, we went ahead and came up with some different words that mean different operations. So for addition, we came up with these different words. They could show up in word problems. For subtraction, we came up with these words. Those all could mean subtraction in word problems. Then we also did the multiplication and the division. Goes into, people were talking about how many times does 4 go into 20 is why we added that to the division. These 3 up here are really more stereotypically what you guys are going to see: quotient, divide, split between things, or separate. Okay. We didn't necessarily talk about the properties today directly. We talked about how they show up and things that we know. So these are things you need to know. So for example, if A equals A, well, that makes sense, right? 4 equals 4. You guys know that. That's actually called the reflexive property. So when it equals itself. Okay. Symmetric is when you guys ask me, does x equal 4? Can I write it as 4 equals x? Yeah, absolutely. It's that you can write those equations in opposite directions. So over here you have 3 equals 5x minus 6. You could flip that around and do 5x minus 6 equals 3. That's the symmetric property. Okay. Transitive property usually requires 3 or more things, and they link themselves together. Okay. So if A equals B and B equals C, then A has to equal C, right? If Magruder is as tall as Arthur, which we know isn't true, but if Magruder is as tall as Arthur and Arthur is as tall as Jansen, then Magruder has to be as tall as Jansen, right? That would be a real life sentence that you would hear the transitive property. Okay, so if this equation right here equals 7 and this equation right here equals 7, then those two equations should equal the same thing. We should be able to set them equal. That's the transitive property. Substitution. This is what you guys do with numbers all of the time. A equals B. So everywhere you see a letter, you can plug it in. Okay, so right here, they subbed in a 9 for 4 plus 5. Makes sense. Okay, the last part that we had on this assignment was to actually solve equations and be able to check. So this one was basic. How do you move 4.39 across that imaginary wall to solve? Well, this was a plus 4.39. So we're going to do the opposite operation. The opposite of plus is minus. So we went ahead and subtracted 4.39 from both sides, and we got an answer of 71.61. Now here's the kicker. Can we check our work and see if we got it right? So if we take the original equation, and everywhere we see an A, we plug in what we got for our answer. Does that equal 76? And it does. So we know that this answer right here is correct. Okay. This one's kind of long. I'm going to put it kind of hopefully at an angle so you guys can see it. It was ugly because we had fractions, but it really wasn't that ugly. This class, we talked about pizzas to do our math. They preferred that than actual operations with fractions. So here we go. So we first had to distribute our 2. So 2 times 2x and 2 times 3. Okay. Then we move over here. Do not forget that negative goes with 3. So you're going to distribute negative 3 times 4x and negative 3 times negative 5. Okay. Equals 22. So this became 4x. This became 6. This became a negative 12x. This became plus 15 equals 22. We went ahead and combined like terms. So 4x went with 12x. That gives us a negative 8x because of this minus right here. And then we put 6 plus 15 was 21. And this equals 22. And then we subtracted 21 because this was a positive 21. So we subtracted. 22 minus 21 is 1. We then divided by a negative 8, and we got that x should equal a negative 8. And again, this was our answer, but we came over here and checked our work. If we plug in a negative 8 everywhere we see an x, do we get the same answer? And the answer was yes. We had solved correctly. Negative 1/8 was the correct answer because at the end we did get 22 equals 22. Okay, so that was our lesson today. If you guys have questions, let me know. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.